So the laggard made sure that they implemented rules as they went along, and the family had the choice of no, the family had to have the responsibility of burdening for and or on that proof. That's what had happened. The laggard put in these rules, and the family had the responsibility of burdening on that proof. You had to deliver on whatever guidelines that they so chose to set in place because they're following the family very closely. They follow you for the best housing options, for the best neighborhoods after they mess up neighborhoods and say, the black neighborhood is unfit. Well, they're the reason why it's unfit. They ran it down and then they follow behind us to the next inhabitable or livable venue where we find ourselves in. But, like I said, also, there's going to come a day when that is no longer the case because, they used to say the buck stops here. you can't you can't go any further with this thing that they call a game, because the thing is that somebody else's game is our real life, our real livelihood. These are real identities that have been placed on the front lines, and they record a movie, push it through this thing called television, and voila, here we are. I can't believe it. They will say the power of media, the power of media, the power of media to from media, televised terror to, I don't know, a neighborhood cops and robbers type of chase around a building of 211, at which point they had someone who kept going around and around and around the building at 211, acting as a single checkpoint. They said, this is getting ridiculous. We don't know what to do. Okay, they keep going around the building at 211. They say, we decided that we have to do something. The perimeter is not wide enough. Okay, and with widening the perimeter, you get the challenges of that construct as well. You widen the perimeters. I'll just do an immediate jump. Next state over to Indiana. Well, the family gets across something that they call a state or border line, but at the same point you get enemies coming in, but they said we can control it a little bit better because we will have fewer enemies that are able to make it in. And perhaps at that time the last name became Ulrich at that time. Eventually they move out a little bit further, more states. It's just like something that they might have once called tropical zoning. Tropical zoning. And it gets a little bit further out, and eventually they run into this thing called continent, different continents: Africa, Asia, South America, Antarctica, Europe, maybe Australia. Let's say Asia, China, Africa. Something like that so far as continents are concerned. South America, North America. Then they say it's a global watch alert. Okay. Global doesn't mean anything. You say international. Okay. It's sounding better. You say international circuit. Okay. They have to come up with something a little bit more adjudicated or adjutifiable. Okay, they come up with a transnational identity. You have a transnational identity. You have a transnational citizenship. You have a statehood. You have a forming of a new nation state. Based on it's based on a magazine called something like the New Young Republicans, or the New Nation, some kind of magazine called The Nation. We started rolling the magazines out. You could probably search for it online. Magazines were obviously never completed. We says, maybe even having a magazine would be considered dangerous. Maybe they just do a newsletter. and the newsletter comes through by a digital format. They used to do newsletters like it was called the Gazette. Maybe it fell underneath something like a library. You say if you send it to an institution of learning, it would have theoretically made things safer if you send it to an institution of learning, whether that be a library, a women's book group, a men's book group, I don't know. Even if you're at a sanctuary, a mission, a zoo, a circus, the children still have to have learning accommodations of some kind. Okay. Even sometimes they're in the back. Well, we got a half an hour. We're off for an hour, or we're off for 3 hours. Children still have to be actively engaged in learning, and you'll see that and they would have once said that you can take a table and chair anywhere. Anywhere you can take a table or chair becomes a learning station or a learning field. Okay, so basically that's what's going on. And so I'm just going ahead and documenting these things as I go. But my ideal choices for books would have been something called The Prisoners of Geography. It was done, and I put it out quite some time ago. You have a general calculus book, no more questions on math. Why this? Why algebra 1? Why algebra 2? Why geometry, trigonometry, I don't know, algebra 1, algebra 2, pre-calculus, then calculus, something like that. That's how the order goes. And then calculus has all these different schools. It has all these different schools. You can program for f of x. You can program for just x. And then the f, g, and then x come up together. But anyway, then you have a multivariable calculus, 2 variable calculus, 3 multiple variable calculus, single variable calculus, isolate for, solve for, polynomial expression, binomial expression, integers. It does get complicated. So some of us were more interested in Sentinel. Some people say it's called Sentinel, but I believe it's Centennial logic. Some of us were more interested in philosophy, because in my brain, philosophy, it has a more dynamic application. You can do a little bit more, I think, with philosophy than you can calculus. Men need calculus to do the bricklaying and the masonry. Some people would say that's a very masculine field. Well, that's the highest level. There's nothing higher than a mason and a bricklayer. they have to lay the bricks, and if the building is not, the structures are not pointing the right direction, then the bricklaying will be all messed up. Calculus cannot be applied to its maximum rate of growth. But anyways, I'm gonna stop there, and I guess I'm naming this the new nation state.